Donc salut à tous. Alors aujourd'hui, voilà aussi Christian, Pablo, hi. Donc bon, hi guys.
Hello.
Donc j'étais en train d'expliquer, du moins j'ai même pas commencé, donc j'explique aux gens un peu comment ça va se passer aujourd'hui. Donc on est en live avec Christian du Grand Jeu qui est déjà passé, ici pour présenter sa librairie et qu'on avait aussi accueilli lors d'un épisode en live. Et Pablo Allison. So, hi man, nice to meet you. Donc cet épisode sera, on va être un peu à jongler avec le français et l'anglais. Donc Christian, je te fais confiance pour faire un peu des traductions. So first of all, Pablo, nice to meet you. Can you introduce yourself maybe for the people here? Tell us who are you?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Thanks to Christian and to you to open the space for me to talk. I'm sorry I'm wearing the mask, but I've got a bit of a cough, so, you know, COVID cough.
Okay,
Anyway.
good to know.
Basically, in a nutshell, I guess the way it's tied up to you is that I come from the graffiti world. I was born in the UK and I then moved to Mexico where I lived. I grew up in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And I learned graffiti in Mexico. Actually,
Mexico City or Mexico the country? Mexico City.
Mexico City.
Okay.
One thing to tie it up with France is that when I was starting graffiti, I started in '96.
Okay.
But by 2000, I met a graffiti writer from Paris who came to live in Mexico and who was probably my main. And I don't really want to talk about graffiti, but I have to say where I come from. But it was my main sort of like my inspiration to then understand how to paint properly. And his tag is Éclat. And
Éclat. Okay, yeah, for sure.
He became one of my best friends to this day. And so I think that from there, I just carried on painting in the traditional form of graffiti, you know, the illegal stuff, etc. And then eventually in 2009, I was involved in a big graffiti investigation in the UK that then led to a prison sentence. I was given the less amount of prison, which was 19 months. I served 6 months in prison. And when I was in prison, I wanted to understand what the fuck I wanted to do once I got released from prison. So I wanted to know how I would use my skills and my interest to get out there and do things again. So eventually I got out of prison and with a clear idea of what I wanted to do, or a kind of clear idea of what I wanted to do, I started working for NGOs, which are human rights organizations. And then I got a little bit sick and tired of living in the UK and I decided to move to Mexico. And among some of the things I wanted to do when I moved back to Mexico was to travel on the beast, on the train that carries migrants.
I have to stop you for a minute because, like, maybe you know there are a lot of French people here and they probably don't understand all English. So just to resume a little bit what you just said. So I will talk in French for a few minutes. Donc t'es.
Tu veux le faire ou comme tu veux?
Moi, je vais le faire. Ça va être aussi simple. Donc Pablo expliquait qu'il est anglais. Qu'il a été élevé au Mexique, à Mexico City, et qu'il a commencé le graphe vers 96 et qu'il a rencontré Éclat en 2000, Éclat donc de Paris, et qui lui a un peu montré, qui a été un peu son mentor. Et depuis, il a été arrêté en Angleterre où il a passé, rappelle-moi Christian, il a passé quoi?
6 mois
Combien de temps en prison?
6 mois.
6 mois en prison donc en Angleterre, et quand il est sorti, il voulait un petit peu trouver sa voie, et il va commencer à nous parler justement de ce qu'il est retourné au Mexique, et c'est là où il a commencé à être impliqué dans ce qu'on appelle The Beast, donc le freight train qui traverse le Mexique et qui ramène les immigrants, ou du moins les immigrants US, pour rentrer aux États-Unis. Donc, il va nous parler de ça maintenant. C'était juste pour replacer un petit peu le truc. So yes, please continue. You was talking about the beast. So explain what is the beast.
Yeah, I'll try to be a little bit shorter so that you guys can translate. So eventually I got to Mexico, and one of my objectives was to travel on the train. The beast is the name that's given to a system of trains in the UK. Sorry, in Mexico.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
in Mexico. But this same train travels to the United States and to Canada. The beast, I believe, and this is what I've been saying, the beast loses its meaning when it crosses the border with the United States or Canada. But the beast is known as the beast when it's in Mexico. And the beast is called the beast because it kills people. It's a monster that kills people. So this is why the reason of the name for freight trains. It's not one freight train. It's a system of trains that cruise across Mexico carrying heavy goods, expensive goods, cheap goods as commerce between the three countries.
Okay. So I will translate, and after that I will ask you some questions. So, donc il dit le Beast, c'est un système de train, de fret qui traverse le Mexique et qui est utilisé par des gens pour se déplacer, mais qui aussi traverse les États-Unis et aussi le Canada, donc 3 pays. Ensuite, il va nous expliquer pourquoi ils appellent ça the Beast, donc la bête. C'est aussi parce que ça tue les gens. Et pourquoi ça tue des gens, il va nous le dire. So why the Beast is killing people, and why is it a way for people to travel? Explain us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, so I would have to go further back to explain why people take the train. So my work focuses, the photography side of my work focuses on the migration of people from Central America, specifically from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. People from these countries are escaping poverty and are escaping extreme violence. And they go on this train, which your question is, it kills people. It certainly, the train itself is dangerous to travel on because it's not a train that's designed for passenger purposes, but it's also controlled by criminal organizations or that people bump into along the way, or simply controlled by petty thieves that want to take advantage of migrants, whether it's men, women, mothers carrying babies, etc. They are all at risk from, confronting the dangers of traveling on the train itself to the United States.
So I have a question about that. This train, so this system of different trains, freight trains, so it's all over South America. It's not only Mexico, correct?
No, the system of trains runs in North America. North America is comprised of 3 countries: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. If we look at the map, we can see that the geography of the map divides one continent, America, the continent, into 3 parts: North America,
Yep.
Canada, United States, and Mexico. Central America, starting with Belize and Guatemala and finishing with Panama. And then Southern America, or South America, starts with Colombia and ends up in Argentina. Specifically, your question is, the answer to your question is, this system of trains operates between the southern border of Mexico all the way up to Canada.
Okay. Yeah, thank you to tell me that, because you talked about Guatemala and all this stuff, but these people first go to Mexico and after that they ride this train. Okay, so I will just translate really quickly. Donc Pablo nous expliquait un peu ce qu'était ce train de Beast, qui est donc des migrants qui viennent d'Amérique du Sud, qui se rendent donc au Mexique et qui qui sautent sur ces trains de marchandises pour pouvoir se déplacer et à la fin arriver aux États-Unis ou même un peu plus loin, donc quitter leur misère, qui est souvent une misère qui est due donc de problèmes sociaux, mais aussi beaucoup de violence. Et sur le chemin, donc c'est un chemin qui est extrêmement compliqué. Ils se font aussi racketter, ils se font persécuter par la police, mais aussi par donc des gangsters ou des mafias. Donc c'est un chemin qui est extrêmement compliqué et dangereux. So you did that. You did the same. You have ride this train and you met these people. So what was your point doing that and how it happened?
Mm-hmm. I have done several journeys over the past 4 years, on and off. I haven't traveled 4 years every day, but I've done many journeys in the course of 4 years. The reason I did the first ever journey was to try to, it wasn't specifically to try to focus on the migration route itself. I was trying to do something a bit more personal, but because I was confronted by a huge amount of people traveling on the train from southern Mexico, I realized that I had to focus my attention also on the people, on the grannies, on the old people, on the mothers, on the pregnant women, etc., men, everyone that was trying to get to the United States. On that first journey, I was traveling with around 2,000 people. So it was inevitable for me as a photographer not to focus on them, on the people that were riding the train. And that one journey led into another journey, and that one led into another journey. And in the course of 4 years, I've conducted several journeys to document the situation. I never planned it as the documentation of the beast as me focusing on this. It happened to be, and from that journey onwards, I decided to carry on.
Donc pour lui, il a passé 4 ans à documenter tout ça, mais ça n'a jamais été 4 ans, 4 ans non-stop. C'était plus pendant 4 ans, il s'est intéressé à ça, et en s'intéressant à ça, donc à ce train, il a rencontré les gens, il a été obligé de documenter un peu leur vie et ce qui se passait sur ce train. So what was your first contact with this train? What attracted you about this train? At the beginning, maybe it was about graffiti, or not at all? It was directly about people.
That's a very interesting question, because this goes back to graffiti. When I was young, I was about 14, 15 perhaps. I remember there was this friend of mine. I was older. I was 16. There was this kid that was like a cholo. I don't know if you know what cholo is.
Yeah, I'm in LA, so I know a little bit about cholo.
He had the LA mentality in him, and his name was Angel. His name is Angel. He was no angel, and I used to go to this neighborhood called Ecatepec in the Estado de Mexico, and we used to paint trains. But whenever there were people traveling on the trains, he would throw rocks at them. And I didn't understand why he would attack these people on the train. And he would say that they were enemies, that they were from the adversary gang. And my intention going there, which is a very dangerous area in Mexico, was just to paint trains. It wasn't to discover the dangers of being in that neighborhood or to attack people that I didn't know were migrants traveling on the train. And that's how my curiosity about this train called the Beast started, really. My introduction with the train was through graffiti.
Ok. Donc, au début, son premier contact avec ce train, ça a été, il était dans un quartier très dangereux de Mexico. Il y allait, de Mexico City, il y allait avec un pote à lui qui s'appelait Angel, qui était donc un cholo. Et ce mec, donc, pendant qu'il peignait donc, ses trains de fret, il voyait donc ces gens se déplacer sur les trains et lui lançait des pierres à ces gens-là. Ça a été son premier contact avec ce type de situation et lui il se demandait Pablo se demandait pourquoi son pote jetait des pierres et qui étaient ces gens-là. Et il lui expliquait que c'était des ennemis, c'était des gens d'autres pays et tout. Donc ça a été son premier contact avec ça à travers le graffiti. So after this first really contact with this situation, I guess you digged a little bit in books, in what to understand who were these people, what was the point of that, and what was the next step for you? You thought, okay, I need to take photos of these people, I need to meet these people. What was the process?
Oof, no, that was a long time ago. That was in the late 90s. I really didn't know who these people were. It wasn't until years later that I realized that these people were actually traveling on the train en route to the United States. But this took a long time to figure it out.
So excuse me. So do you know, it has been more than 20 years that people use this train, or more than that? I don't know when did they started to use this train to cross Mexico and the US.
Well,
come to the US. Sorry.
The train as a way of migrating to get a better life.
Yeah.
Is something has been happening ever since the hobos in the United States.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, makes sense.
The United States were crossing from state to state during the Depression to try to find a better life, and they were migrants inside their country. Now let's pretend, I mean, it's a different context, let's say, in a way, although the aspiration of getting a better life is the same idea. It's the same principle. So the Latin American or the Central American experience, or the journey itself from southern Mexico to the United States, it's been going on for decades. I mean, I know of people that I've heard of stories of people that were riding in the 80s, the train. The context was different. The cartel presence was not one that would threaten people like it threatens people today. So the dangers have shifted, and today it's the network of cartels controlling the routes is the game has changed a lot. So now I believe it may be a lot more riskier now due to the instability of the country situation than it was back in the, let's say, the 80s or the 90s perhaps. But
so what was the danger for this migrant or these travelers back in the days? It was more to be caught by the police compared to now, that maybe it's more the danger, it's more like insecurity with the cartels and stuff like that.
I would assume that the illegality of traveling on the train could have been a factor that made it dangerous. Always traveling on a train like this is dangerous in itself, because it's not a train designed for passengers. Usually what people do is that they either don't understand don't understand the danger and confront the danger of jumping on a train that's in motion. And it happens so often that legs are amputated, arms are amputated, people get killed just because it's dangerous traveling on the train. But then also the dangers of being on a train and then being, kicked off a train by criminals is the other danger. What was the danger back in the before the 2000s? I mean, I think that just the illegality of traveling on the train was dangerous, but now it's combined with cartel control, etc.
Okay, so I will translate a little bit. It's really interesting. So, donc il disait que je me rappelle tout parce que maintenant il y a plein de choses intéressantes. Il disait donc que ça date. Je lui demandais un peu ces transports, ce phénomène depuis quand il date, et il me disait que ça date depuis les hobos, quoi, en fait, qui existait aussi aux États-Unis, et c'est juste un autre moyen de se déplacer. Pendant la Grande Dépression aux États-Unis, les hobos utilisaient le même type de système, sauf que maintenant, ce sont des migrants qui se déplacent pour d'autres raisons, peut-être. Et ensuite, je lui demandais aussi, il me disait que maintenant, ce qui était le plus dangereux, en dehors du fait que c'est dangereux de sauter sur un train de fret, c'est aussi les cartels donc qui attaquent les gens et qui rendent la journée ou le transport encore plus dangereux. Il nous parlait aussi du fait que ces gens-là n'ont pas l'habitude ou ne savent pas gérer le fait de sauter sur un train qui est en marche. Et souvent, il y a des accidents par rapport à ça, des gens qui se sont coupés des jambes, des gens qui tombent dans les rails. Donc, on va continuer à parler de ça et savoir un petit peu plus aussi sur son projet. So, you talked about these people jumping on the trains, and they don't really know how to deal with this kind of situation. We know that as a graffiti writer, maybe we are more used to this kind of things. You know, when you tell me, okay, jump on the freight train, I will have some basic knowledge about what to do and not to do. But I don't know, probably these people don't know shit about that. So they are just desperate, they see a train, they jump on it. This is the main problem on why this accident happened?
Yeah, I think that what has happened in the past, today it's much more difficult to take a train, to board a train, because of all the policies against migration to the United States. But when there's been huge numbers of migrants trying to grab a train to, you know, start their journey further north, yeah, they have no understanding of what the danger of clinging onto a train involves. Yeah. Complete lack of understanding, and that's one of the reasons why people lose their life or have, you know, amputations, because of the lack of information. And I guess that's one big factor. But also the criminal groups, the criminal cartels that operate across the territory. It doesn't mean that by traveling on a train you will bump into problems, but there is always a huge expectation that you will face the dangers of traveling on the train. And you can potentially bump into that at any point in time, from the moment you start your journey up until the moment you get off the train or you land on the border with the United States. There's always going to be this presence of danger.
So why I have kind of, I guess, an answer about this question, but why the cartel is so involved into robbing these people? So what is the point exactly? Because we know that the cartel try to get money with different stuff, the classic drug, prostitution, all this kind of stuff. Why the migrants are a target? So can you explain us a little bit more about that?
Migrants have got a lot of potential of being robbed because they have networks in the United States that will, either family or friends, that will pay for their the trafficker to cross them into the United States. The money and your question is a very fair question. You'd think, well, a migrant doesn't have any money. A migrant might be carrying their savings or might have been given money by the family in their country, but they may not have any money themselves, but they can certainly make a phone call to their family in the United States to seek the money for a ransom, and then pass it over to the cartels that know that these people can get $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in any way.
So it's not like I come to you, I get your money, I rob your money. It's more like I get to you, I kind of kidnap you, and I say, okay, you call this guy, you transfer the money, and you can continue the road. This is what happened?
It could be the first one or the second one.
Okay.
It could either rob you off of what you've got, which is very few things, or they can force you to make a phone call, and then money comes back to the cartel or the kidnapper. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cartel guy, the kidnapper, and then they liberate you or they kill you or whatever. But yeah, but there's definitely profit in the migrant trade.
Wow, that's really sad. Okay, I have to translate that. Donc
One point. this is not an isolated story of what happens, the same that happens to migrants coming to Europe. It's the same story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Donc il nous expliquait que l'insécurité par rapport aux cartels et aux gens qui se faisaient voler donc sur ces trains, et il expliquait un petit peu comment ça fonctionnait, c'est-à-dire que les gens vont rejoindre leur famille, donc ils ont soit des économies, soit des gens qui les attendent aux États-Unis et qui sont qui ont potentiellement de l'argent. Donc les mecs ou les volent ou les kidnappent, appellent donc les contacts qu'ils ont aux États-Unis pour pouvoir leur soutirer de l'argent. Et donc il expliquait que c'était quelque chose qui était extrêmement commun et qui est aussi commun à d'autres migrants qui viennent, qui utilisent peut-être pas ce train-là ou dans d'autres pays. So what was your how have you been involved into that? So you have been riding this train by yourself with these people, correct?
Yeah.
So you took photos. So we have to talk about your book. So you took photos. You did the same that these people, except I guess you're not. You have some passports and stuff. You're not in the same situation that this migrant, I guess. So it's a little bit different. So what happened to you? And I want also talk about your book. You know, so how did you manage to publish books, and what is the wow? Sorry, I have lost my English now, right now. You know, like speaking in French and English, I'm fucking lost. So talk about your fucking book.
I mean, look, you said that it's a little bit different. It's hugely different. My circumstances are very different to the people that I've been accompanying, that I've had the luck to accompany. I can decide when to go home and to secure safety, but most people that I've traveled with cannot secure safety. So they have to go on the journey up until where they can, and then hope and pray that they can reach their final destination. That's a very important thing to state.
True. That's true.
My situation, I am a Mexican citizen and British citizen. My Mexican side allows me to communicate in Spanish, which is another passport into relating to people speaking the same language. That opens a lot of doors. The graffiti also has opened a lot of doors to all of us that paint when we've been in circumstances where we want to go to certain neighborhoods. That also opened doors for me in the regions where these people come from, that I probably wouldn't have been able to have access to had it not been for graffiti. My work spans from 2000, and the work I've been doing on the migrant trail of Central America to the United States starts in 2017. And the result of the first journey I did from 2017 till 2020 was called The Light of the Beast. It was a book that documented 3 years of migration of Central Americans to the United States. That book then led into this new book that is called the Detainee Handbook, which is the chapter of detention and deportation. So the first book, which I don't have a copy of right now, the book actually sold out. I was very lucky. That book documents the journey of migrants from Central America to the United States. This book talks about the detention and the deportation of migrants in detention in the United States. And this book is the result of my time being incarcerated in a detention center in 2019. I never thought in my life that I would end up in a detention center in the United States as a detainee around people from different countries that I had, had the experience traveling with.
Okay, so I will translate a little bit. Donc, donc il dit sa situation est totalement différente des gens qui sont sur ce train puisque lui il a une double nationalité. Donc Christian, si jamais tu vois que ma traduction elle est un peu bidon, tu peux aussi intervenir. Donc je disais donc il a une double nationalité anglaise et mexicaine. Donc il n'est pas dans la même situation que ces gens qui laissent tout derrière et qui se servent une situation qui est quand même extrêmement différente. Donc il tenait à le souligner. Et il a déjà fait une première publication d'un livre qui est sold out où il parlait justement de ces 3 ans qu'il avait passé avec ces migrants sur le train et tout. Et aujourd'hui, ce qu'il parle pour ce nouveau livre, c'est un truc qui parle plus de sa détention qu'il a eue en arrivant aux États-Unis. Donc plus le côté judiciaire qui est lié au fait d'être un migrant et d'essayer d'arriver aux États-Unis. Donc c'est plus ça dont il parle dans ce livre. C'est bien ça, Christian?
Oui, tout à fait, parce qu'au fait, lors du premier projet, au fait, il y avait un travail de documentation, donc de travail photographique. Ça, après, je pense qu'on pourrait revenir sur le rôle que le graffiti a eu aussi dans cette première phase, qui était celui de documenter comment les migrants utilisaient ce train pour partir du Mexique du Sud et arriver jusqu'à la frontière avec les US. Et après 3 ans pendant lesquels il s'arrêtait lui-même à la frontière et retournait chez lui et en laissant les migrants essayer de traverser la frontière, il a eu envie de passer outre et de le faire avec eux. Donc, en fait, il s'est fait passer lui-même pour un migrant, ce qui fait qu'il a été arrêté et amené dans un centre de détention aux États-Unis comme les autres migrants. Et que pendant ce séjour dans le centre de détention, il a réuni toute une série d'éléments de documentation, là on en parlera, au sein de ce livre qui raconte donc la deuxième phase de ce travail. Il y en a même une troisième, mais ça on le garde pour la suite, quoi. Voilà, donc c'était ça. Donc la chose qui est assez impressionnante, c'est que malgré le fait qu'à la frontière, il lui aurait suffi de sortir son passeport anglais et de dire je suis juste un touriste et je veux un visa de quelques semaines pour être là en vacances, il s'est fait passer pour un Mexicain qui est entré illégalement aux US et donc il s'est fait arrêter. Il est parti dans un centre de détention avec tous les autres.
Okay, so Pablo, it was really so you have been arrested. So you have been arrested at the border. So this is the ICE policy or whatever they call it in the US. So they treated you as a migrant, illegal alien, or this is I think it's like that. They said that. So what happened to you?
Yeah, so it's a very long story, and this book talks about the life of detainees inside an ICE detention center. But to make the long story short, I was traveling on the trains from Mexico to the United States, and then from the United States to the Canadian border, and then the journey would continue from Vancouver all the way to the east coast of Canada. I was then stopped on the Canada-United States border. Canadians didn't let me in. They bounced me back to the Border Patrol in the United States. Border Patrol decided not to let me into the United States again, under the premise that I had overstayed my visa in the United States. I didn't know. And eventually they then, after many hours of the story is a lot longer, but I'm trying to condense it. They then sent me to a prison, which was a detention center. But what looks like a prison, tastes like a prison, and looks like a prison is a prison. It's not a detention. The name is detention center.
Yeah.
And I was shocked because I didn't expect to end up being in that situation ever in my life. And then when I was in this detention center, I realized why that had happened, why I had ended up being in this, why they decided to put me in a detention center. And on day one, I decided to document my surroundings, to understand, to write, to understand the surroundings by drawing them, by being in touch with other prisoners, interviewing them, let's say, speaking to them, drawing portraits of them, and basically just documenting the whole of my time in this detention center.
As a journalist, really as a journalist.
As as a prisoner, really, because
Yeah.
my work was already based on the story of migration. And it was important to continue with this work to get the privilege of being inside the place where migrants end up in the thousands, and to write the stories of their incarceration and accompany them by observational sketches and portraits of the people. I had heard not thousands, but many stories of what migrants, how they end up in detention in the United States. Yet I never thought myself that I would end up in this situation. And little did I know, I was in the place that I'd heard hundreds of stories of this situation. So it was pretty surreal. It was like destiny. Destiny led me into the second chapter of my work, which was detention and deportation.
Et Pablo me racontait tout à l'heure que la suite de cette affaire, c'est aussi qu'il a été interdit d'entrer aux US pendant 5 ans, et que donc il a envie de continuer ce projet, mais qu'il doit aussi prendre en compte le fait qu'il doit attendre encore quelques années avant de pouvoir s'approcher à nouveau d'une frontière aux US.
Ok, et il est resté. How long did you stay in this detention center?
In that detention center, I was there for almost 1 month, which was enough time. I should have not spent one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I was lucky to be able to leave after almost a month.
Okay. So, you know, I'm living in the US, and I saw and I heard about the situation, you know, this kind of mindset that Trump made, you know, about all these migrants kind of attacking the US or stuff like that. I'm not dumb. I have to check some history books. I know borders are always moving. I know the history about Mexico and especially California and Arizona. It's so close. It's like that. So that's kind of ridiculous. But what do you think about this this state of mind of like being afraid like that of the migrants, especially in the US, and how? Because I guess you could talk to the policemen or whatever guys were in this prison. What was and you're not, you know, I want to say you're not the classical migrants. You have like this English passport. Your English is super good, so you could maybe talk to this guy differently. So what was the feeling? How did you felt about American and their vision about migrants?
Well, one thing to point out is that when I was in this detention center, there were 2 COs, the main 2 COs, which are the correctional officers in our wing. That's a wing that was comprised of 86 prisoners, 86 detainees, they call them. They were nice. They would be very flexible. They would be very understanding of the situation of all these people. Some had been there for a month, like me. Others had been there for 2 years, 3 years, wow, fighting their cases for non-deportation. Many people had been there after living in the United States their whole life, and then they found themselves in this limbo where they were fighting to remain in a country that was theirs, but they just didn't have a certificate to validate them as Americans, as US people. Your question was, what is my view on how people think of migration in the United States?
Yeah, kind of, you know, like the regular guys. For me, I can see all these people with these stickers on their pickup telling, like, I don't know, you know, this super rude and aggressive way to express their feeling and their fear about all these migrants. So I was wondering, how was your experience inside this detention center, and how these security guys, or I don't know what the word is for that, or policemen, what kind of, because now they were really in contact with these people. They probably realize that they are not criminals, they are not like killers, they are just people. Obviously they want to quit somewhere where they can't live. Well, so they you're probably as man, even if you're a policeman, you can probably see that all this shit is different, that politician wants to you know, sorry, my English is now, I'm losing my English. Sorry.
They want to I think that as I explained before, when I was there were the two COs that were in the prison, in the cell, were very understanding of the situation, and they just were very flexible with the people that are in the prison. But there's also the arseholes that just have to serve their country, and they have to. The funny thing is that a lot of the people that are in serving the law and order, in States, they come from different countries. But the problem is that if you are white, you belong to that country. Mm-hmm. But if you're not white, somehow you're not from that country. And that applies to France, it applies to Britain, it applies to every country, that if you're white, oh yes, you're Italian, you're French, you're German. But if you're brown, but you were born there, oh, but he is a Nigerian German, he is a Moroccan French. Mm-hmm. And like, we need to come to an understanding of what is identity. And the problem, what I'm trying to say, is far more complicated than just, you know, these people that are afraid of the intruders. I hear in the news now that these people are bringing diseases, as in the migrants are bringing diseases from over the border. But in in colonial times, the Spanish brought all the diseases to Mesoamerica, to the when Mexico was not Mexico, when mm-hmm. Mexico was a series of cultures, and they brought their diseases, and it killed lots of people that were living there. So it's the repetition of this blame of the poor people are bringing the diseases, and the poor people this, and the poor people that. It's complicated. I'm kind of going into different topics, but we need to come to an understanding of us as human beings, all of us, to be able to empathize. But it's so difficult when a country wants to protect their wealth. And then mm-hmm. we need to, where does this wealth come from? Where does the French wealth come from? It comes from Haiti, and it comes from Algeria, and it comes from other countries. And I don't know the history very well of how France became a power, but
that's the same for every kind of countries. You don't need to know specific stuff. It's basically built of the same concepts. You take it from everywhere, and you grow. But I'm totally agree. We need to learn from each other, and this is exactly what you did doing this trip, and taking photos of these people, talking with these people, living the same way they were living, at least during this journey, this trip. And I'm really excited to look at your book. So your book is available at Le Grand Jeu online too, I imagine. Yeah. Yes. So maybe can you remind me the name of the title of the book, please? Yeah. And Christian, tu peux le faire voir. Ah oui, c'est vrai, c'est à l'envers, donc il va falloir que tu me le dises.
Donc c'est Detainee handbook. Donc c'était comme le livre d'école pour les détenus. Et dans ce livre, en fait, Pablo a rassemblé toute une série de notes manuscrites ou de portraits dessinés qu'il a pu réaliser ou récolter pendant son mois d'emprisonnement dans ce centre de détention pour migrants aux États-Unis. Donc
moi, il a utilisé aussi les feuilles de cantine et les trucs comme ça. C'est ça. Ce que je vois derrière sur les caisses qu'il a utilisées, ce sont les feuilles administratives, quoi, ce qu'il avait en.
C'est vraiment parce qu'en fait, quand tu es en prison, tu peux pas aller t'acheter du papier blanc classique. Mm-hmm. C'est vraiment toute une série de feuilles qu'il a utilisées. Parfois, c'est vraiment des feuilles administratives. Et la chose qui est assez belle du livre, c'est que c'est un assemblage de papiers de différentes couleurs. Comme souvent, les papiers administratifs peuvent être de différentes couleurs ou de feuilles un peu plus transparentes. Et donc, ça restitue vraiment le côté aussi physique de la vie en prison et du fait que tu utilises pour prendre des notes ou écrire ou dessiner, ben, tout bout de papier que tu peux avoir qui te tombe entre les mains. Donc, ça, voilà. Donc, le livre est disponible à la librairie en physique ou bien sur le shop en ligne. Mais après, voilà, je pense que je ne sais pas combien de temps on a encore à disposition, mais Pablo me racontait tout à l'heure aussi quelque chose qui est à nouveau pour retourner aussi sur le graffiti et au fait sur le côté positif du graffiti, parce que pendant son premier projet, au cours duquel il documentait donc le voyage sur les trains de fret du Mexique du Sud jusqu'à la frontière américaine. Lui, il était là avec son appareil photo, mais il avait aussi des bombes aérosols et il peignait. Il peignait à la fois les trains ou il peignait des murs lors des arrêts. Et là, on va lui proposer d'en parler parce qu'en fait, finalement, je ne dirais pas que c'était des ateliers de graffiti pour les voyageurs, mais c'est vrai que en fait, le graffiti était une espèce de parenthèse positive dans la journée de ces migrants qui essayaient de traverser le Mexique pour commencer une nouvelle vie. Donc, et c'était des situations un peu inattendues auxquelles il s'est confronté. Donc voilà, je ne sais pas si tu as envie un peu parler.
Yeah, we can talk about that like 5 minutes or what. So Christian was talking about the fact that, and you talked about that a little bit, about graffiti was a tool for you to also interact with these people and to bring something totally new in their life, right?
Well, I have to say that graffiti has been what has opened so many platforms for me as a photographer in addressing this issue. Like, I know that graffiti can be a very toxic environment. It can also generate a very positive environment.
Yes, sure.
And I think that my work, overall, 99% of the platforms where I've been able to present my work, both my publications, the talks I do all the time, exhibitions, etc., have been generated through the graffiti world. And I think that's a very unique thing, that if you are a photographer, you don't always get that chance if you don't have another platform to position yourself. If you're a photographer, it's a very difficult world to crack. And luckily, today, for instance, I'm sitting with you, I'm sitting with Christian. I both met you through graffiti. I didn't meet you because of my photography. Or perhaps, maybe I did. Maybe Fuzi, you did. But and you didn't have a reference of me as a graffiti writer. But it's something led to another through graffiti. Graffiti, I hope that has helped people, like when we painted outside migrant shelters, and in this case he's talking about a situation where we painted a big wall that said "Migrantes Valientes," me and two other friends, and we hoped that their day went differently. We hoped that the monotony was broken. We brought food, we played music, we painted a big wall, and yes, I think graffiti can also generate that environment of positivity, of hope, and yes, it has played a big role in the different languages. Like I use writing, and I use sketching, I use graffiti, and I use photography, and I use poems, and I use collaborations. So all these different things, I amalgamate them into one to address a topic that I think is close to my heart, and I think that is important to everyone. Because, and I will close with this, graffiti is a migrant phenomenon. People that started painting graffiti in New York, if we think about graffiti as a traditional thing of, the history of New York and graffiti.
Yeah, American graffiti.
Exactly. It was people from all walks of life, black, predominantly Latin American and white and African American. But they were the sons of migrants, or they were migrants themselves. So anyone that is in disagreement with migration, I would question why they're painting graffiti.
Yeah, you can go even further with that, with this idea. Like if you want to make sense into being against migrants, it's kind of difficult, but it's super interesting to show. Graffiti is always we are chased by the police. You have been in jail for graffiti. A lot of people have been in prison for graffiti. And in the same time, like you said, when you're in a situation like that, when people escape misery, escape violence, and they see a guy painting a mural, at the end it's graffiti, it's art, it's like sharing something. So this is a real essence of what we are doing. We are just painting on walls or even on trains. It's that. So that's the beauty of these things. These guys came from a terrible background and they see a guy painting and it brings joy. So yeah, it's basically what it is at the end of the day. We are not we said vandals, we said we are not criminals, we are at the end kind of artists. So I think we'll stop this discussion on this positive touch. And that's super interesting. I could talk with you for hours, but I invite people to buy your book, to check your Instagram too. So it's Pablo London 2, I think.
All together, Pab London 2.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's true. And I will post this video on my YouTube channel, like that.
Thanks.
People can really listen and maybe do some research on their side. But congratulations for this project. Thank you, Christian. And I will come to your bookstore really soon. Next week, I will be there. So thank you, guys. T'as une dernière chose à dire, Christian?
Non, mais écoutez, moi, la chose qui m'amusait, c'est que j'étais en train un peu de faire du digging un peu extrême, je l'avoue, dans le monde du graffiti sur train de fret. Et donc sur le projet de Pablo. Et j'ai trouvé ça franchement génial. C'est-à-dire que c'était à la fois profondément inscrit dans l'histoire du graffiti et du graffiti sur train de fret, qui est presque un monde à part dans l'univers du graffiti. Mais c'était en même temps un projet très humaniste, très engagé, même pas politiquement, je dirais juste socialement, l'idée d'aller voir la vie de
humainement, quoi, juste l'humain, quoi.
Voilà, juste l'humain et tout ça. Et dans ma bataille personnelle entre le graffiti et le street art, tu vois, je réfléchis et j'imagine l'installation que JR avait fait, par exemple, par-dessus la barrière avec l'enfant qui jouait tout ça. Et ça a été sur les premières pages de tout le monde et comme ça. Et ça devient presque une icône de comment l'art urbain se rapporte, on va dire, à des thèmes importants comme la migration. Et puis, je vois des projets comme celui de Pablo qui, pour moi, sont beaucoup plus engagés. Pablo a pris énormément de risques et prend encore aujourd'hui, parce que le projet n'est pas fini, énormément de risques pour réaliser. Donc, je me disais que parmi les amateurs de graffiti sur train de fret et les amateurs de graffiti en général, il y en aurait eu pas mal qui auraient été contents de découvrir ce projet. Donc, c'est pour ça que je t'en avais parlé. Merci d'ailleurs pour l'accueil qui a été...
Tu sais, je te coupe, excuse-moi, mais ça résume bien comment est mise en scène ou comment le street art et le graffiti se différencient. Tu vois ce que je veux dire? C'est exactement ça. C'est-à-dire, c'est exactement ça. Il n'y a même pas besoin d'en dire plus. Voilà, c'est l'interprétation street art de cette situation. Tu l'as dit, c'est JR, et l'autre graffiti, c'est Pablo. Donc, je pense que moi, je connaissais son travail d'avant. J'avais vu son livre, j'avais vu aussi, il avait fait un newspaper il n'y a pas très longtemps aussi, qui était super intéressant. Donc, je suis super content de vous avoir reçu ici, quoi.
Bah, écoute, merci pour l'accueil et puis bon, à très vite. On t'attend, on est nombreux à t'attendre à Paris, de toute manière.
Putain, ok, je suis prêt, j'arrive les gars, j'arrive.
Voilà.
Super. Merci à tous.
Merci
Thank
à toi.
you very much. Bye Pablo. Ciao Christian. Merci à tous. Bye.